And we kind of have a running start anyway, so Rome just decides anyways when we started. So.
That's right.
But no, we've
Ben
seen
once
it all,
spent
man.
A whole
I spent
afternoon coaching
I spent
somebody.
like a weekend with somebody trying to figure out their system. Well, fantastic. I don't even know how to start this, but we're gonna give it a shot.
Yes,
We're gonna give it a shot. Well, you know, I mean, I'm a little nervous right now. I don't know if I like.
Why?
Well, Tina, you're
Why to
Tina,
be
you're in
nervous?
for- you're
Ken
in
and
for
I
a
are
treat
old
here.
friends now.
Yeah, you're in for a treat. This is a very special podcast for me. I'm going to try to hold it together. So, Dr. White is a friend, a mentor, probably the most influential teacher in my life. I would say that.
Wow.
And to have him on the podcast is like, I don't even know if that even crossed my mind as a possibility until Catherine said something. But it is a pleasure. So today I would like to hear. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable calling you Ken. So this is a weird thing.
Call me
I would like to hear.
Do what you're comfortable with. It's okay.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with Ken. That sounds so strange. I would like to hear Dr. White's story because I feel like I've heard pieces of it, but over the years. And Tina, for your background, Dr. White was a professor at my graduate school in VCU, and I would say, as you know, I was going through a very challenging time in my life, or like trying to understand what I was going to do, and then also just with my father and my mother and all those things, and yeah, I feel like he probably didn't know, but he was someone that was a grounding force for me. So that was where we'll start.
You look at, he's so proud of you. Look at his face.
I'm so proud of you.
So
and
nice.
I'm also, just to be honest, I'm fighting back tears, and because I'm a feeling person and I feel deeply.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's one of those things where you're like, maybe even give a background a little bit. Like, I went to grad school and it was like, because I didn't know what else to do, you know?
Mhm.
And this was the time in my life where
What year was that? Can you set the stage?
it would have been 99, 98, 99, 2000. And I went from Grand Rapids, Michigan to like Richmond, Virginia in
Mhm.
my little car and moved all my stuff down there by myself, right? And it was just such a very, you know, like, I don't know, it was a good time, but it was also like, I guess I'll do this, you know? And so it felt very like, I don't know, alone. And then it was the same time frame, to give some context for people, where I had learned information about my father that was like, it was not good. It was like, I'd known my dad was gay, so most of you know that my father was gay, and I didn't have the problem with that. It was like this other stuff, and it was all kind of coming up at the
The
same
screen
time.
went black. You cut me off. I just want to say that you were one who stuck out in my mind over the years, and I can't even, all the years run together. Ben, what year did you graduate, and what year did you start?
Yeah, we were just talking about that because Tina was trying to give me like, what's the time frame of this? I would have started in the fall of 98 and finished in 2000.
No, you would have finished. You would have finished 3 years later, 2001.
2001, yeah. But my 2
Okay,
years on
yeah,
campus,
yeah.
it would have been 98, 99, half of 2000.
So that's
yeah.
really. I knew it was early, but I didn't graduate until 96 from VCU with my PhD. So I was an assistant professor from 96.
That's right.
So you were early in my career. So I was there for 20 years and left in 2013. And your class president was Jackie,
the
Yeah.
one and only.
so an amazing class. It was a wonderful time in my life. I was just sort of starting to shape my career, which had taken a a pivot from practice. Tina and I had been in the practice world as a hospital administrator, and my assignment prior to showing up at VCU in 1993 was I was running the hospital on Guam for a Catholic system called Mercy Health Services, based in Farmington Hills near you. And now I get
Yeah,
a
the old Trinity. Yeah,
retirement
yeah.
check
Or,
every month
yeah.
from it's now Trinity, or what was it was Trinity
Yeah.
before it became Common Spirit, right? So yeah, I pivoted, and I had no intentions of ever being a faculty member. I was going to be a consultant. And when I got there, I fell in love with it, and I especially fell in love with, young minds and being influential, and using my experience to help people find their authentic selves and to help find what they're good at. I don't know, Ben, if you ever heard me say this, but I've said it a million times. If you want to have power in your life, be good at what you're good at and stop trying to be like every other person, because forget it. I mean, it's wasted time. How another person does or does not succeed in life has nothing to do with you. You've got to beat to your own drum,
Mhm.
and you always did that, Ben.
Well, yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's funny because you say that, and I'm now mentoring, I'm trying to do as much as I can with VCU grad students. And what I find often is they feel this overwhelming pressure to kind of do the thing that someone wants them to do, or they should have it all figured out. That's often like, you should have it all figured out. You should know. Like, I hear other preceptors give them that feedback, and I was like, what are you talking about? You're 23 years old. Like, how could you? There's just figure out what you don't want to do, and maybe like go do some things and see what, like, don't, like, what are you trying to put that pressure on yourself for? Like, you're trying to be
Hmm.
someone else, maybe, like that's really, that's great. um let's
Well,
go
I
back
can
to,
already tell
oh,
just
go, yeah.
listening to Ken, like what an impact he had on you, Ben. Because like just and you talking about mentoring, like I think one of the first things, like when I met you, it took a little while, but as soon as you realized like, oh, Tina's really good at these things, like I need to let Tina be Tina, right? Like you didn't try to change me or fit me in a box. Like you were like, oh, and then I think the longer our relationship has gone on, the more you're like, just let let Tina be Tina, right? And I think that's right, embracing what I do well and moving forward. And you've always been so supportive of that. And I think you encourage people to be their best selves.
I mean, that's very nice of you to say. I do feel like I and I don't know where I got that from, but I feel like I'm constantly thinking, how do I maximize Tina, or how do I maximize you?
Mhm.
I do it with almost everybody I meet, which can be a blessing and a curse to a degree. So, because I can be somewhat challenging to try to, like, because I think like, well, that person, I see the potential of like who they
Mhm.
are and what they could be, and so it's like pushing them to go do that. But that's very nice of you to say. Dr. White, I want to go back. I would love to hear the origin story. Where did you grow up? What was your family like? Did you have siblings? What were your parents like? What did they do? Like, that kind of stuff. Let's start at the beginning, because I feel like there's always fruit there.
Just like the sound of music. Let's start at the very beginning. Um,
That's right.
It's the very best place to start.
it begins with.
If we're gonna quote
Well,
musicals, let's
Are we doing the whole
I'm
song? What are we
happy
doing?
to stay in that mode with you. I was born in 1956, in Okmulgee, Okmulgee, Oklahoma, which is a very small town, and we even lived outside of town between Okmulgee and a smaller town called Morris. And the only claim to fame Morris has had, it was the home of Anita Hill, if you remember her.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the town was also the home of the Creek Nation, or the Muskogee Nation of the Muskogee or Creek uh, tribe, one of the 5 civilized tribes. And so um, it was a unique place to grow up in that um, there was a lot of diversity, but we didn't cross uh, over with that diversity. My parents were not college educated. I was the first person to go to college. My mother was a telephone operator with Southwestern Bell, and she worked in the old-fashioned cord board like
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live.
Oh
Um,
my
That's so
gosh.
cool.
Amazing.
and my father was good with math, and so he ran a loan company, like to help people, borrow money, and he would take, you know, for collateral, he would like get cars and furniture. And growing up, we would always have furniture that had been repossessed from his clients. So, one time we
What?
had like a Spanish, like black and like Naugahyde kind of black and red. And then we would go from that to early American. And then um, we lived in a small house, 1 bathroom. I had a sister, Brenda. Brenda was born 2 years later. And I knew that I was going to be challenging, or my parents knew I was going to be challenging, when Brenda was born on my birthday 2 years later. So we share the same birthday.
Brenda. How dare
And
you, Brenda?
what's so interesting about growing up in rural northeastern Oklahoma is we weren't taught much about the history of the Native American people that we lived with.
Right.
And nor were we taught about, the horrible riot in Tulsa, the Greenwood Massacre. We weren't taught about those things. It's just so odd that we lived in a place where all this was occurring and we knew nothing about it.
You knew nothing about
Um,
it.
so anyway, I
Hmm.
grew up, and I was not a very uh, um, sports-minded child. I was also quite overweight, as even in obese. Um, I weighed more when I was 12 than I do now, which was 240. And so you can
When
imagine
you were
what a
12?
tall, big, uh, person who didn't like sports. And furthermore, I made it worse by choosing things that I like to do, like musicals and playing the piano. And I started taking piano lessons when I was 5 and did quite well as a child. And uh, but I was always petrified of performance because of the judgment that I felt like was out there. And so I set some boundaries that were unrealistic, that were self-defeating. I mean, they were not helping me. Um, and then when I got in the 6th grade and had to make a decision about band in the 7th grade. So my
Mm-hmm.
father was he he always tried to butch me up, take me hunting, take me fishing, teach me how to shoot a gun. Why don't you want to play baseball? Why don't you want to do this? I didn't take with any of those things. And I loved watching Boston Pops. We had 4 channels, and I liked Boston Pops. And I learned
And you
all
got
the
the Boston
instruments
Pops on there?
in the orchestra.
Incredible.
And my favorite
Right.
instrument in the orchestra was oboe. So when I was asked about what instrument I wanted to play in the high school band, I said oboe. Well, march with an oboe, and this is a football playing country. And oboes are really more in orchestras than they are in bands. And so the band director said, okay, well, let's not start you on the oboe. Let's start you on something you can march with. I think it should be a flute. So here's this tall,
Very masculine. Sure, that really made you
overweight,
6'2", 240
person that
playing the
wore.
flute.
You're like, you sure we can't get a piccolo?
So yeah, I played that too, and I could play them all by the time it was
Of
over.
course.
I mean, and I'm wearing my grandmother's homemade shirts because we were so poor, and she liked to sew, and she would choose all of her favorite fabrics to make shirts out of. And here I was, marching down Main Street with my piccolo and flute, and I just got used to people making fun of me. I mean, being bullied. And I tried to figure out a path in my life where I could be me, but also deep down, I knew that I was gay too. And that was something I hadn't grappled with at all.
When did you have that conclude? Like, when did you you knew that?
So
I mean, I don't know.
I knew.
Is there a seminal moment
Yeah.
or no?
So I knew at a young age that I was different than other boys my age. Different in that, it wasn't just about. I didn't have a label for it. I knew that there were two men in my hometown who the women talked about. Everyone talked about them as being gay. I don't know if they used the word gay. And they were extremely effeminate. One was a hairdresser, and all the women went to him because he was the best. And the other one was the florist. And everyone went to him because he was...
This is tracking, okay? Yes.
But they were both very effeminate. And so my only two role models were these two men that, were like women. And I wasn't attracted to that. I was more attracted to masculine men, but I kept that secret to myself.
See, this is when you should have gone hunting and fishing.
Yes.
Just to get in the group.
So I knew I was different then, but I didn't have a label for it. I didn't really know what it was.
But what age was that? Like, was there an age of like, it was 16? I was like, I knew there was something.
Seventh grade.
Okay, 12. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then but I also had this overlay of religious oppression and this fundamentalist religion that I grew up with. My parents divorced when I was about 15, and I didn't have any contact with my father for 10 years. He didn't try to contact me, and I made the first move after that and tried to have a relationship with him. My mother married when I was 15, a wonderful man, my stepfather, who was really more like my father. I never felt judged by him, even though he was a Pentecostal minister.
Shut your mouth.
So
that is insane.
Yet another PK.
When I was 16,
another PK. This is coming back to me. That's the other thing that we have in common is that we're both PK.
So when I was 16, I thought, I've got to get out of this house. I mean, I have to get a job because I have to get out of this town. And I knew that getting out of the town would require me to have my own car. So I could walk to the hospital. I got a job at the hospital at 16 in my junior year in school, and I could walk to the hospital. I made $1.71 an hour as an orderly, and I loved that job. I worked full time until I graduated, and I bought a car, paid cash for it, a 1973 Chevrolet Vega. Bright green color.
Cash.
And as soon as I graduated from high school, this is significant because the nurse that I worked with there, who on the 311 shift, I'm still in touch with. I received a Christmas card from her. She was an amazing mentor and the best nurse I could have imagined to teach me how to be a caring and compassionate individual. The ward clerk is also worth mentioning because she's not a footnote in my life. She was a Black woman by the name of Florine McCurdy, and Miss McCurdy was a nursing assistant when the hospital was segregated. So all the Black patients were in the basement at one time, and none of the white care providers, including physicians and nurses, were stationed there full time. They would make visits. There was one Black doctor, and he would visit the Black patients, but all of the Black nursing assistants, nurses' aides, they were called then, provided all the care. And McCurdy said to me, "You need to do something with yourself. Where are you going to go to college?" And I said, "I don't think I'm cut out for college." I said, "I want to go to nursing school." And so I applied to St. John's Nursing School diploma program in Tulsa, and I got in. That's significant because I was only the second man to get in.
What?
Because until 1972, men were not allowed to apply to nursing schools in many places, including Mass General Hospital, where I was the dean of the nursing school, my last job, University of Virginia, same thing. So no men, no people of color.
Insane.
It was a white women's profession. So my first year, I went to a junior college and took courses, and I didn't think I was smart enough, and I made A's in everything. I listened, I recorded, I was a good student. And then I got a letter in the mail saying they were closing the doors of their diploma school. This is now an Ascension Hospital in Tulsa, St. John Medical Center. They're closing their nursing school. I'm working at the hospital, St. Francis, and some of the physicians that I knew worked with said, we're really connected to Oral Roberts University. You should go there.
I'm not laughing. I'm just.
I know. I'm laughing.
The irony.
I can't believe this is me, but it was me then. And it was a really good place for me to go and hide. And so I applied, and there was one question in the application: do you play a musical instrument?
And you said, "Ask me how many."
I said, yes, oboe.
Yeah, which one?
I got an immediate call saying, "We need a second chair oboe player, and you need to come in and play something for us." But I said, "I don't own an oboe." And they said, "We have one, we'll give to you." And I went in and auditioned and got a seat. And that's what paid for my college education. So I didn't take to the sort of the some of the mind blowing kinds of things that went on there. I always questioned it, and I didn't really fall into the prevailing personality of that school, but I do think I made the most of it, and I got a good education. So somewhere along the line, I decided they didn't have nursing there, so I would be biology and chemistry and music. So I minored in music and majored in biology. And I applied to medical school, didn't get in. And I also applied to MHA school at the University of Oklahoma and got in. And after 5 years at St. Francis, I moved to Oklahoma City and pursued my MHA program. And I was sent, I didn't get a chance to interview Ben like you did. I was sent for my residency to Mercy Hospital, which was a Catholic hospital in Oklahoma City. And I thought it was the most fascinating place I'd ever been. So I spent the next 12 years working at that hospital in different jobs, different positions, from administrative resident to, vice president of marketing and business development to CEO of the administrator of the Guam hospital. So, and then that sort of puts me where I ended up in Richmond in 1993. I forgot to tell you something really important. In 1982, I met Ginger. And Ginger was an oncology nurse at Mercy. And in 1983, Ginger and I got married. And we were married from
You
1983,
got married?
from 1983 till 1990. We didn't have any children. Um, and she claimed she didn't know I was gay until 7 years after our divorce. So there were other issues that we had to deal with, communications and just different people. But I'm really close to her. We're really good friends. In fact, she was here a few months back with her husband, and they stayed 5 days, and we love being together
What?
with them. I know, Ben.
I have so many questions, but
I
I
know,
don't
I know,
know
I know.
even where to begin.
So
But my father did the same
yeah,
thing. Like he just was like, "That's what you do. You get married." And
you
he was a
do, you
pastor,
do,
like
and so Ginger had a hard time at first understanding that she wasn't just a cover for me. She,
Well, you loved
I
her.
loved her, and I still love
Yeah.
her, but
Yeah.
it it's one of those things that's really hard to explain to somebody. I mean, unless you've really lived that and had that
yeah.
experience, but
Mm-hmm.
just try to appreciate it, So yeah, I thought that was important to throw in. So when I was so in 19
No, that was an important
so in
point.
19
Probably
Well,
an
you blew
important note
Ben's
in the
mind,
story.
so there it is.
so
You
I was
know.
like,
in
wait, you
1993 when I moved to Richmond, I decided I don't have my Oklahoma baggage.
were just
I was
divorced
divorced in 90, and my years in
in
Guam,
90.
I
Okay, so
was
3 years. Okay.
single, and
Oh, so you like left the
I
country.
left the
You're like, we're going to
country.
Guam.
Yeah, I left the country. That was part of it too. So I I
Right.
met somebody on Guam after I was divorced. I met someone, and it was really my first male, romantic relationship. And it turns out he was a nurse. And by the way, I was not a nurse then.
I know this
I
is
was
like
not a
I kept
nurse.
thinking that you'd gotten your nursing degree a long, long time ago and then
So
did
then in
administration. But
1990,
you went to nursing school that got closed down, and now you're like,
so
it's gonna go full
but I
circle.
but I always felt like a door had been blocked, and that I really am a nurse at heart, and I really wanted to go back. So when I was working on my PhD at VCU, I went to nursing school at the same time, and they were having an inaugural an experiment. Uh, it was called accelerated second degree nurses. People had degrees in something else. And it was an 18-month program where you could become eligible for the NCLEX and be a registered nurse. So I started in 93 in the PhD program, and in 95, December, I received a BSN and an MSN from the School of Nursing at VCU. And in May, I received my PhD from Health Administration. So I got to do everything I wanted to do. I had
Incredible.
3 new degrees, and I was selected from a search committee in health administration to join the faculty, and I couldn't have been happier. It was like one of the best moments of my life. But I needed to get some experience as a nurse, so I worked a second shift. I don't know if you knew this, Ben. When you were there,
It doesn't
I
ring a
worked the
bell.
second shift at St. Mary's Hospital in the emergency room, 5:30 to 1 was my shift. And I worked 2 or 3 nights a week for 3 or 4 years. And then when I bought my house on Park Avenue, I stopped the job because I didn't need the money anymore for my down payment. But then I started working in a free clinic, the Crossover Clinic.
Yes, the crossover clinic.
So at my
Yes.
church, I founded a free
Yeah.
clinic for the walk-in people that went to we had it was a Centenarian United Methodist Church, and we had a walk-in soup kitchen on Fridays for people who were homeless. I guess now the term is unhoused. And we had our little clinic, and I ran the clinic and got to know that population, and really felt a huge blessing in doing that kind of work. That really it goes with what matters to me. And what matters to me is advocating for people who don't have a voice and going to people who need help and care and accessible care. So it was quite, and then I met Ben Regal, and then he joined in 1998, right, Ben? 98?
Mm-hmm.
So you interviewed in 97, most likely, or maybe late 90, early 98?
It would have been, yeah, it would have been 98 in the
Yeah.
spring. Yeah.
And so my origin story, there are a few themes in there that I want to highlight, and I always call them my 5 Ps. The first P is purpose. The best experience I had was working in that small hospital in Okmulgee, because I knew then what my purpose was going to be in life. And I tell the story about Mr. Fisher. I don't know don't think we have the time for that story, but it was a patient that I took care of who was alone, poor, very sick with a lot of comorbid conditions, and he had a terrible death, and it didn't have to be that way. He was my first patient that I cared for who died, and I knew then that my purpose was going to be helping people have a voice and advocating for people who should have a say in decision making about their care. We did horrible things to people against their will, and if they didn't cooperate, they were labeled difficult. And it's not difficult when you want a certain outcome or practice. And so Mr. Fisher gave me my purpose. The second is passion. And what I'm excited about is really, really great patient care, the best care possible. And I hope it came through, Ben, with you and all the students, how important it is to understand what happens at the core of the business. And I didn't know this was a thing, like it was any very innovative at all, but I was the only clinical person in the entire department. There were no physicians. There were no other people who had a clinical environment, but we were teaching these 23, 24-year-olds, many of them are right out of college. We were preparing them for a very quick trajectory to the CEO role. I mean, they were all, because they were at one of the best MHA programs in the world. They were being catapulted into the C-suite in their 20s, and many of them had never even set foot in a hospital, nor
100%.
had they, been in the room of a sick person. So everything I tried to do, and it met a lot of resistance at first, but the curriculum, I tried to include a lot of things that were never a part of the curriculum, and I called it the patient-centric health administration curriculum. I wrote it up, got it passed in our program, talked about it. Other people copied it. UNC Chapel Hill, Minnesota.
Yeah, there wasn't a term until it really wasn't a phrase in that
health
education.
administration curriculum. And so I used the first 2 P's, the passion, purpose. And then the other P is pay attention, because someone's going to come in your life with information or a message that could change you completely. You end up going on a different path. So pay attention to that. We can't plan our careers if they're not linear. You have to be open to serendipity, the things you don't ask for or expect. And the fourth P is really positioning. How do you want people to know about you? What is your position? What do you stand for? What is your brand? And be loyal to that brand. And otherwise, you're all over the place. And my fifth P, I can't remember what it is, but it has to do with not not paying attention to what other people have and you don't. Oh, I know what it is now. Play to your strengths. Play to your strengths. So I learned, in school that I was different than other kids because I didn't have the finest clothing, the latest thing, the latest computer, the latest iPhone or whatever now. And I compared myself to those other people thinking that I was not enough. And that's a total waste of time. Play to your strengths. If you want to have power in your life, be good at what you're good at. And I've said that before. So playing to your strengths is be even better at what you're good at rather than trying to work on your weaknesses. Remember that, Ben? All those things, your professional development plan, your PDP, I changed it. It used to be called strengths and weaknesses. And I called it strengths and areas for development. And I taught all of my students that strengths and areas for development are mirror images of each other. I mean, they truly are. I mean, if you're a really good time manager, then you might not be as spontaneous. If you get what I'm trying to say. So
right, because you're not open to new things or open to disruption that could actually improve your process or your.
So I'm going to stop there. I mean, that sort of gets me up to where I met Ben and then how my life unfolded after Ben left. Maybe.
Well, no, I think
you wanted me to keep
before
going,
Ben
or
and after Ben, BB and AB.
But
Tina just made it funny. We'll just leave it at that. I know Tina's got to run, but I think we'll stay on, and because I want to hear the rest.
Okay. Well, yes. Let me just say, Ken, it was a delight. I feel like I have met a new guru. I'm so pleased to have spent this time with you. No, I'm writing down those 5 Ps. I'm going to go work on my areas of improvement right now.
I'll send you a link. There's another speech that's a lot more elegant.
And listen, I also want to see these photos and letters.
Okay.
I think we should do a separate post with photos of young Ben.
Okay, I will.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Tina.
Well, I think I would love to continue because I want to hear the rest of like how you ended up back, kind of leaving academia, going back in, because I think the rest of it is something that even I haven't caught up on. Like how did you end up doing the rest of those things and how you got to today? Because I think they're fascinating. So I think it's worth running through.
Okay, good. Well, I give me the sign if I'm going on too much.
We're good. We're good.
So that gets me up to let's say 2000. Okay, you're there in 2000, and in 2000, April 15th, 2000, I had that big painting. Do you remember that big painting in my house? Were you ever in my Park Avenue
house?
April 15th, 2000. Beautiful. You graduated in 2001, so you were a student then, and so I had 7 years after I moved to Richmond. The guy that I thought was going to join me in Richmond decided at the last minute not to come and break up with me. So I was really upset about that for a long time. And so I just poured myself into the PhD program and my work and publications and writing and all that. And so I had 7 years of thinking, I'm never going to meet anybody. I didn't want to go to the bars and just, but it was also a time of AIDS and HIV, and being outed was kind of a concern. Not so much.
Yeah, because it wasn't public information.
It wasn't. I mean, I don't think I was out when you were there. I don't think I was out at all.
I mean, I knew because we had talked, but I remember it being like you had a party at your house for
Yeah,
us,
I
like
did.
that
I did. I had a
class.
party.
And people were like, "Oh, it's like the unspoken. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
everybody
His
knows."
partner, his
But
friend.
like, yes, but like nobody, nobody's saying it. It was just this weird time, and I look back and I'm like, that is so. I don't understand any of it. Like, why? Like, what did it matter? It didn't matter. Like,
No,
we all
no,
knew,
no,
so it was like wasn't an issue. So I don't know why it
no. I
was.
know,
It's
but
just crazy.
it was sort of new and different.
It wasn't okay though, right? Because you'd be a professor, and
What's that?
that would have been a problem. It would have been. Would it have been a problem? You being
I
a
don't think
professor, and
so, but that's why I wanted to stay in academia. You asked me, it was a safe
mm,
place. If you're going to be out gay, you're better to be out gay in academia than to be out gay in
it's
the
true.
very conservative healthcare management profession, right? I mean,
Yes, yes,
I have a story
yes.
about that too. So so in 2000, I met Carl. In 2009, 9 at 9 was the name of the invitation. And I was on Cary Street Road, and it was a friend of ours who was vice president of the Federal Reserve, closeted, who had a big pool party. And I got there late and I met Carl. And we're together now 26 years. And
Wow.
after I met Carl in 2000, um, I still didn't, I didn't hide it, but I didn't beat the drum about, being gay and having a partner. And one day in class in the early 2000s, I can't remember, but I told this story to crowds of thousands. It's true. I'll tell you how that happened. Um, I was in the Grant House and lecturing, and I was always protective of the pronoun. So I wouldn't say he or she with partner. I would just say partner. And, but I felt so comfortable with the class that I said
Mm-hmm.
he, and I thought I was going to get fired. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible. I think I hope people don't like be upset. I don't know. It's irrational now. Now it's irrational, completely irrational. But I thought
Right,
it was,
right. That was probably Verlin's class. That was Verlin and those guys.
what's that?
That had to have been the class after us. I bet it was the class
It
after
could have
us. It
been
was Verlin,
Gals or
Sally, and those
even a
guys.
later class, 2000, probably 2000 or 2001 or two. And so then that's when I say, you know what happened? Nothing. Nothing happened, except several people wanted to see me. And two of those people were closeted gay men. One of those persons was a closeted gay woman.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a tremendous gift to them and their gift to me
Yeah, for
to come to
sure.
me
Right.
and say, am I in the wrong profession? And I remember this one guy said, you're not in the wrong profession if this is something you want to do, but you're going to have to choose your your role carefully. If you're an out gay person, don't plan on going to a rural community hospital in Oklahoma. Um, but
Saying from experience.
well, totally from experience.
Right.
But
Right.
and this person ended up going to Chicago and did his residency in Chicago with a consulting company. And so it was really good that I didn't have to worry about that anymore. And then we have Will and Grace. So Will and Grace, I believe, normalized a lot of things that put it on TV, primetime TV, and Will and Grace and ER. Those were the two shows that the students were watching for like a decade. So
Yeah, for
normalized it.
sure.
So
Yeah.
I met Carl. We were together. We were we had some rocky roads in the beginning, but we worked things out, and we in 2011 we got married in the courthouse in Washington D.C. before it was legal in Virginia, and We moved in together in 2010. We've been together ever since, 26 years. And so I want to mention that I ran for the board of governors of ACHE. I had been a regent with ACHE, and I run for the board of governors of ACHE. And the first time I was blocked because word had gotten out that I was a homosexual. And so I tried again, and I got it. I got in. What's significant about that is two things.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is I was the first openly gay person to serve on the board. The second thing is I was the second nurse.
I knew you were going to say
The
it.
first one was in 1933. So it took from 1933 to like 2003 for them to take a nurse onto the board. And
That's crazy.
I ran for chair twice, and I was taken aside both times and was told, not ready for an out gay man who's a nurse to be chairman of ACHE. Later on, apologized to me and changed his way of looking at things. But the reason that this is important to my story is that when they presented the anti-discrimination policy to the board, it only included gender, race, and ethnicity. There was no mention anywhere of other kinds of diversity, like LGBT, like disabilities, like veteran. Many other categories, you know.
Yeah.
And since I was on the board, so I asked them to include language that was more inclusive, and it was vetoed.
This would have been circa when?
So
like, what is the time frame?
I can go back
2010?
with the exact date. So I think around 2003.
Okay.
So I was, I had a friend who was, had been married, had 5 children, divorced and came out. And he was a senior vice president at Stanford. And he and I got together and said, well, we need a group. ACHE is not going to represent us, so we need our own group. So we founded a nonprofit called Rainbow Health Care Leadership Alliance, RHLA. And Stanford put up the money for us to hire a part-time person to help with the, you know, all the getting the dues and everything else. So when ACHE met in Congress, we rented a hotel room, and we had our own little, you know, open bar and our own little support group.
Yeah, of course.
So,
this is awesome.
Tom, fast forward, and the person who took over was somebody I really like. She's still there, and liberal-minded person. And I went to her and said, so our funding was running out of the RHLA, and asked her if we could be a separate group with ACHE. She took it to the board, and long story short, they invited us to have our own LGBT group of people at an ACHE, like they called us an affinity group. So we just so we dissolved our nonprofit, and so fast forward, all of these contributions, nursing, legitimizing nursing as a, you know, a leadership position on the board, and diversity and inclusion is what led later in 2018 to receiving the Gold Medal Award. So the ACHE's highest award that they give every year. And it was for that. It was for changing the way they think about the LGBTQ and definition of diversity and other things I'd done, like writing the textbook and all those things.
just no big
So
deal writing a
I wanted
textbook.
to
It's
mention
fine.
that because I'm a hybrid professional. I went all the way to the top with that award in healthcare management, and then I decided in 2012, 2011 that I would go back to school and be a nurse practitioner in palliative care because I was doing a lot of work with people at the Massey Cancer Center, and what they were doing was my initial calling with Mr. Fisher. Um, I wanted to do something to help people with their own agency in making decisions, especially if they had a life-limiting disease. I went to Pat Coyne. I said, Pat, I want to do what you're doing. And he said, well, you have to be a nurse practitioner first. Where should I go? He said, UVA. They have the best program. So I went to UVA and
So you went back to school. How old are you at this
54.
point?
I was 54.
Oh my
I went back
God.
to school, went to UVA. I'm still at UVA. I'm still at VCU, but I went back to UVA and I got a postmaster certificate to be an acute care nurse practitioner. And I worked out all of my clinicals so that my clinicals were with the best people. I was with Pat Coyne at VCU, and an entire semester I was at Dartmouth Hitchcock with Ira Byock, who wrote The Best Care Possible. And he's been on 60 Minutes. He's like the guru of palliative medicine. And then when I graduated from that program in 2013, the dean offered me a job as associate dean. So I moved to UVA in 2013, 20 years at VCU. She got me a practice. So I was an in-house, inpatient palliative consult service every Tuesday, and holidays and weekends. I took call for the entire team. And it was amazing. I mean, that here I am, now they don't even know me as a hospital administration kind of guy. They know me as a
Right.
nurse, a palliative
Nurse.
care
Right.
provider. And that was probably one of the most, if not the most meaningful job I've ever had, was working with patients and families at or near the end of life and in a very intimate space. And seeing, helping healing taking place, not just like existential healing, but families, like healing families and helping people honor their preferences for how they want to exit.
What did you learn about, like, I think I'm fascinated in, like, I read this book called Confessions of a Funeral Director,
Mm,
and it's written by, I don't know if I mentioned this, but it's written by a guy who was a funeral director,
yeah,
and it's all the things kind of behind the scenes, and it was really the most therapeutic book I've read after my mom died suddenly, right? Like,
yeah,
because he talks a lot about kind of like American culture in particular. Western culture likes to separate death from, like, separate us as much as possible
yes,
from the process.
yes,
That's why we have like that's why we have those, because we're basically outsourcing this to somebody else dealing with the body and
yeah,
all this other
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But he talked about, and I'd be curious to know your thoughts on this. He talked a fair amount about they call it the liminal space, which is like this part of, like, where death is kind of like the thing that can kind of eliminate all the other stuff. So there's all these, like, let's say, infighting amongst, like, the family,
Yes,
or there's all these, he's like, you could just see it happen where, like, the death actually kind of just creates this, where, like, it almost none of that stuff matters
right.
anymore, and you're able to kind of, like, because most people try to avoid it, but it's actually this, what he called the liminal space, where it's
Yes,
like it actually transcends most of those other things, and it clarifies. And he said he saw it happen so much that it was just something that you couldn't avoid. And I'm curious, from your perspective, like, what did you see and learn from that?
so th- th- the word I used was sacred space, and I think we're talking about the same thing. What did
Hmm.
I learn from that? I think what I learned from that is the importance in saying things to people that matters. Um, because often my patients were fighting their own last breath. They were hanging on for lots of different reasons. I mean, psychological, emotional. So, I mean, I could certainly work with the physical pain and the other symptom management for these people, but so much of it had nothing to do with the physical. It was all about relationships, guilt, leaving people who don't know how to pay the bills. I had just one quick story. I don't know why this came to me just now, but I had one patient who should have died like weeks before. He was, I mean, by all accounts, none of us knew why he was still living. So
Right.
I went in to talk to him, and he had horrible symptom burden and tumors, and I said, he said, I just want to die. And I said, tell me about that. What's keeping you from dying? He said, I was a horrible father. I made some mistakes in my younger years, and I had an affair with a woman, and we got divorced, and I feel sort of estranged from my one son. And I said, where does your son live? And he said, Richmond. And I said, when was the last time you saw your son? He said, like 10 or 12 years ago. So I said, would you mind if I called your son? Does he know you're here? He said, no. So I said, can I call him? He knew the phone number by memory, by heart. He gave me the phone number. I went in the group room where my colleagues were all, and I called the son, and I told him who I was. UVA, your father's here. Your father's has not very long to live. And he wants you to know, but he doesn't think you would care.
Mm.
And the son's like, I had no idea. Of course I care. I'm going to go get my wife. I'm going to get my kids out of school, and we'll be there in 2 hours. And he said, I don't know what to say to him. I said, come up to the 3rd floor. Text me when you get here. I'll meet you in a room. We'll talk about it. And they got there, and I went in and told the patient, your son is coming with his family, and I'm going to meet him. And the family wanted me to stay with them in the room, and I said, no, this is private time. So we talked, and I told them what to expect, how he looks, so they wouldn't be, just so shocked. And so I went in, and it's like everyone introduced, and then I said, I'm going to leave you alone. They left, and the man died in the night. The son said, what do I say? And I said, Ira Byock's book, The 4 Things That Matter Most. Thank you for bringing me here, for having me, forgiving me, whatever. I forgive you for whatever. I hope you'll forgive me for whatever. I didn't always do it right. Could have done better. And the last one is, I love you. And if you can't say I love you, you can say, some people have a hard time with that, I've always wanted to love you. And I've always wanted to feel loved by you. He says those are the 4 things that people regret the most if they don't have those conversations. And so I think what I learned was, you asked what did I learn? I think those 4 things were the things that I always came back to, with finding a safe space at the end of life, that sacred space. And many times, I would encourage families, they know your voice, they can hear you speaking. They may not be able to open their eyes, but include them in conversations around the bed, talk about memories, laugh, make fun of your father's terrible dad jokes. Um, do all those things. And I can't tell you how many times while the family was laughing and crying and the person in the bed took the last breath. It's just phenomenal how that works. When you have people, like palliative care professionals and others who are really experienced at this. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
not something everyone's gifted with.
Well, I think most people, it's like you said, like the father was, or the son was with his family. Like, what do I say? Like, most people don't know. That's why when you said earlier is like, well, words matter, are
Yeah.
important, or I think you said something like words are important, and my immediate thought was like, I think that's where people like get caught up, and so it's like, well, don't visit them because I don't know what I'm gonna say, and so they lose out on this
Yeah.
opportunity to kind of do the.
And
But how did I guess like for like what when you say that words matter, like how do you come up with like what do you like figure out what to say? Is that something you learned in the palliative care school,
so
or is it something with experience, or
so I think it's
a little
yeah,
bit of both?
so a big part of palliative care is communication, and how you communicate is important. So you would do more listening than speaking for sure. And a few important questions.
Mm.
Tell me about we would always have something we called the family meeting or the goals of care meeting, and where you get people together, and it's usually the handoff from the medical folks to the palliative folks saying, you know, we've done all we can do in terms of, testing and treatment, and now we need to turn to you for palliation and, helping reduce suffering. And I think the first question I always ask is, who are you? Where'd you go to school? Where'd you grow up? What matters to you now? Um, what do you know about your disease or condition? What do you want to know? Or do you want not
Uh-huh.
to know? And if that's the case,
Uh-huh.
who do you want to know? Do you have a pet? Yes, I have a
Right.
dog, and I want to be out of this hospital so I can be in my chair with my dog, looking out the window at the birds. And I would say things like, off the wall things, well, then what's stopping you? Well, my doc wants me to get one more round of chemo. And what do you think about that? I don't want
Right.
any more chemo. I want to go home and sit in my chair. All right, we can make that happen. Let's do it today.
It's fascinating because one of the things I've been working on and just noodling on is this thing around agency and giving people agency.
Yes.
And I actually think it's the thing that today, what all the progression in AI is like to me is like, oh, this can be really good. One of the challenges is that people are rolling things out and not giving people agency to have ability to control. And so these things they're not scaling, they're actually failing
Right.
on an organization level. And I'm like, of course they are, because you're literally taking away agency from
Yeah.
people.
And
So it's fascinating you bring it up because I think it's 100% true.
so I did that for 7 years, retired from UVA, and then I didn't like retirement. And so I took a job as a dean in Boston. And somewhere along the way, I was elected president of the American Academy of Nursing. And that's important for a couple of reasons. One, I wasn't a nurse until I was 40. I wasn't an NP until I was 55. And
Right.
I was the first man to be president of the American Academy of Nursing. It's interesting. Tomorrow I'm going to be driving to DC for the ANA's having this big international impact summit. And I'm on a panel of 6 people, and we're being called the nurse icons. I had to laugh. I was on this thing, and so like,
I'm laughing because it's like whenever that would make me cringe. I wouldn't want to put my name on something.
I'm a nurse icon.
What are you talking about? People are like, people will be like, oh, you're a social media, you're a podcast, you're an influencer. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? I can't say that about, I would never say that about myself. I can't believe you're saying it.
But I am on a panel with a lot of other people that I highly respect. So I think just to put a little like cap on this discussion, I think I've had 2 wonderful professions where I've like gone in leadership ways to the best I could in terms of serving those 2 professions. And that's what gives me a lot of satisfaction, but also the people that I met along the way, like you.
I think my reflection is, and there's so much here, but I think that what is so much so valuable is the impact you had on people in different phases of your life, and I think, and in different ways. To me, that's just so rare. It's like, yeah, you could be so good at one thing, and like that's what I'm good at, and I feel like, like I'm good at some things and I can do that, but you like totally switch from like you're gonna be this professor or this leadership person, then a professor, and then look at all the impact you had on all the students. I mean, just think about that. Even the people who don't keep in touch with you, like, my guess is you had a huge impact on them either way, right? And then you go to this other thing and you had this direct impact on people and patients and people who are dying and families, and then in the meantime had all this impact on, like, you paved the way for so many people and LGBT, like, that would identify with you. You paved the way. Like, think about all the stuff that you just went through. It's like ACHE is a classic example. I mean, that's rigid as hell. That wasn't changing easily.
I mean, looking back on it,
if you hadn't done that, would they still have the same policy?
I don't know.
Probably.
I wouldn't give it up. I was like a dog with a bone. I wouldn't give it up, but I also didn't come across as hostile. I mean, I was always going for like tiny wins. Like if we had a retreat in Santa Fe for the board, and the invitation went to Carl, but they were quite sure that the name was misspelled. So it was addressed to Dr. Carol Uten. And he was invited to this board
Here's
retreat.
Carol. Here's Carol
in Santa Fe.
Oh, that's Carl.
And I was like, yeah, it's Carl. Carl's a physician, and it's Carl, and he's coming with me. And they were all nervous because they didn't know how to talk to us. We were just normal people. Like, so finding those little wins, like if we're likable, I had a faculty appointment at the Darden School at UVA, and I was the faculty advisor for the health club. And there were students extremely smart, but they didn't have the likability factor. If you're going to be successful as a leader, you've got to work on the likability factor. Like, don't talk about yourself all the time. And so I think it had to do with, like, when they met Carl and me, they said, okay, well, they're just normal people.
Yeah.
And so getting to know people that are not like you, I think helps with some of that agency. It it So there were small wins, and over time I didn't give up, and I waited. Sometimes timing is the most important thing. So when there's a new CEO who had a different, like a more liberal viewpoint, she was a social worker, the time was right. So sometimes you just have to hold your thoughts.
Yeah, but you know what the secret is? Here's what actually makes what you do special. Is that it's never about you. The most important thing here that you've taught everybody, especially me, it was never about you.
Mm-hmm.
You were doing things for others almost like every single scenario you've described.
Mm.
It wasn't about like Ken's gaining influence or you did this thing for the others behind you. And I think that's one of the most amazing, impressive things.
Thank you for saying that.
Out of all.
It's
I
incredible. I didn't do it as a consciously.
No, and that's the point, right? Like it's like not conscious. You've just been doing that your whole life.
Wow.
It's fascinating. It's amazing. I'm blessed to have heard the story. I know Tina was. She really here for the rest of it. She's gonna be disappointed, but that's such as life.
Well, I'm very touched, and I feel very privileged that you care enough about me that you wanted to hear my story.
I'm so glad we did it. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for doing it. I'm sorry we had multiple technical difficulties, but we pulled it off. It will stitch together fine. It was amazing.